In the 40th millennium, the planet Krieg was a thriving, heavily fortified hive world populated by billions. Bloated with wealth and resentful of the Imperium's heavy tithes, Krieg's ruling council of autocrats declared martial law and severed their world from the Imperium of man. The rebellion triggered an immediate civil war. Loyalist forces under the command of Colonel Jurton seized control of a single hive city, Ferrograd. Surrounded by millions of traitors, and informed by Segmentum command that an Imperial fleet would not be coming to save them, Jurton's forces were entirely cut off. Jurton decided that if Krieg would not belong to the Emperor, it would belong to no one. Working with a loyal Adeptus Mechanicus ally, he unlocked a secret subterranean vault and unleashed its payload. On the day of the feast of the Emperor's ascension, Jurton fired a barrage of forbidden atomic weapons directly into the planet's stratosphere. Lethal isotopes blanketed the globe. Nuclear fires blocked out the sun, triggering a total ecological collapse and a permanent, freezing radioactive winter. Untold billions burned or starved in the weeks that followed. The atomic bombardment leveled the playing field, but the Civil War raged on for another 500 years. The descendants of the survivors inherited a blasted wasteland, along with an inescapable collective guilt for the treason that caused it. For 15 generations, the remaining loyalists fought to retake their poisoned world, trench by trench and tunnel by tunnel. They fought from deep inside subterranean bunkers, waging a brutal war of attrition across radioactive chemical wastes. This isolated, hellish existence birthed a new theological doctrine known as the cult of sacrifice. Krieg society teaches that every single citizen is born damned, carrying the unforgivable stain of their ancestors' heresy. To atone, the soldiers of Krieg strip away their own humanity. They discard their birth names in favor of alphanumeric designations, and they conceal their faces permanently behind thick rebreather masks and dark trench coats. Their combat doctrine relies entirely on overwhelming force and absolute attrition. Krieg commanders do not rely on complex tactical maneuvers. They calculate that any battle where their capacity to absorb casualties exceeds the enemy's is a battle already won. Centuries of nuclear winter and deeply ingrained theological guilt successfully weaponized human psychology. It removed the instinct for self-preservation, turning the desire for a violent, sacrificial death into a reliable military asset. When Krieg finally returned to Imperial rule, the planet had no agriculture or industry left to offer. Its only resource was manpower. The planet now exports tens of fully equipped military regiments every single year, a massive quota that vastly exceeds the normal population output for a world of its size. To sustain these impossible numbers, the authorities of Krieg rely on a heavily guarded, controversial technology known as the Vitae Womb. This diagram represents the system's basic function. By utilizing artificial gestation techniques, the Vitae Womb bypasses natural human reproduction entirely. It processes raw biological material through standardized fats to manufacture thousands of identical human soldiers on an industrial scale. This manufacturing mindset extends to the battlefield. Krieg regiments do not deploy standard medics. Instead, they use specialized officers known as Quartermasters. During combat, Quartermasters evaluate the wounded. Field triage is considered a waste, so they administer a point-blank execution. Their actual priority is equipment recovery. The weapons and armor of the fallen are stripped, cleaned, and immediately redistributed to the next wave of recruits. Human flesh is treated as a highly replaceable, easily manufactured commodity. The las gun, the rebreather mask, and the trench shovel are the true permanent capital of the Krieg war machine. The ultimate test of this system occurred during the Siege of Rax. For 17 years, the Death Korps of Krieg formed the entirety of the 88th Siege Army, tasked with retaking a heavily fortified Imperial armory world from a massive rebel force. The conditions on Rax were notoriously lethal. Soldiers lived in a churning quagmire of mud and volcanic dust under constant artillery bombardment. As the siege dragged on, enemy forces deployed flesh-eating chemical weapons, releasing acidic green fog that melted lungs and dissolved armor in seconds. The Death Korps did not break morale. Their specialist engineer squads simply dug deeper subterranean sap tunnels to undermine the enemy fortifications, while commanders ordered their men over the lip of the trenches and fed millions of soldiers directly into the breaches. By the year 830 of the 41st millennium, the math finally leveled out. Vrax was successfully reclaimed for the Imperium of Man, costing the lives of 14 million Krieg guardsmen. You cannot defeat an army by inflicting pain, fear, or overwhelming casualty rates, when the soldiers behind the masks have already accepted that they are dead.